Today I'm going to re-unbox. Yes, re-unbox. This is a used copy of The Struggle of Nations, Napoleon's Spring and Autumn Campaigns in Saxony 1813. This is an historical game on the War of German Liberation. This is part of Kevin Zucker's campaigns of Napoleon's system, or I think it's got different names. I originally uncovered it or dealt with it on my channel with Arcola. I'll put a link to this in the description down below. And as I was doing this, I showed this game and said, well, should I go ahead and do an unboxing or overview of this game? And I thought, why not? This is part of Kilroy's bargain bin. I picked this up. As I said, I think I said on the video, I picked this up in the last 10 to 15 years, maybe. Picked it up used. I believe it was, I picked this up as part of my friendly local gaming store going out of business. And I think there was somebody who had, one of his patrons had passed and had several games that were just kind of on a clearance shelf, and so I picked this one up, and it's from Avalon Hill. I actually played this way back in the day, long time ago, and I don't think we ever finished a full round of it. This is a unique game, in not only in its rules but also in its components. This system has different scales, and I believe this one is on the same. I think this is 1x, which I think is the same as Arcola. There's it's kind of a wonky system in that I don't know how tight it is on all the rules. I think there's a lot of things that are similar in the system, the campaigns of Napoleon, but they're not necessarily this coherent system, the best I could tell, but I need to dive into it a little bit more. Anyway, so let's get inside the box and see what we have here. As I said, this is used, so some of the stuff you're going to see in here is, like, you see some corner splits and stuff like that. Here are some of the counters, and as you can see, the counters are very small. And they primarily, they represent the units or the leaders for the most part. A lot of times you keep the strength on a separate, keep track of the strengths on a leader board or a status board, which we'll get into when we get in here. And I think that is something that's consistent throughout the Campaigns of Napoleon series. But you see the counters are really small because the board is very small. These are the smallest hexes I've ever seen. And I remember playing this way back in the day, and just could not get over how small these hexes are. So and this is Avalon Hill, so it's got those kind of mounted boards that if you fold them the wrong way, they are going to split open. But I think everything was in place in this one, although the box split. I'll do these boards out here in a second. Let's see what else we have in here. We have the rules folder, Struggle of Nations. This is, boy, that's a long title there, but here are the rules. And actually, there were two of them came in here. There was two rules folders. I don't know if every edition came that way or if we were just lucky to have two rules folders in here. But it is several pages long. There's an ad for the general there, but it looks like it is 46 pages long. And this is not... This is a little bit complex of a system here. Again, it's operational, so it's going to have a certain amount of complexity beyond just your typical tactical game. Here is some background on it, semantic network. So it shows you the course of play. Here's the maps, how they kind of fit together. The maps are a little odd in their configuration, but they're just not your straight rectangle. Here's describing some of the units here. And summary of the leader types. As I said, the leaders are what's going to be on the board, but you're going to keep track of strengths on the separate leader chart. Here's some glossary. Here's sequence of play. Administrative points. And that's key to this. That brings in some of that, brings in some of the logistics and operational aspect of this game is kind of tied up in this administrative points. The previous owner highlighted this. I don't think this rule book is highlighted, so maybe they got a second rule book so they could highlight. Here's communications. So, your communication lines or your command structure, that's going to be very important in this game, as it was in Napoleonic times. Here's your line of communications. Movement commands. So, your kind of orders and commands are going to be important. March, attrition, leadership. As you can see, a lot of it is dealing with command and leadership as we've gone to the rules here. At least 3 of the sections have all dealt with that. Here's your initiative rating, limit on force size. That's your command span. Subordination rating, all those different things that go into the chain of command and your command and control structure. Here's initiative, organization display. That's the organizational display. That's where you're going to be keeping track of all your units. Morale, which again is very important. Friendly territory movement. We get section 14, we finally get to movement. All your different things that deal with movement. I mean, it doesn't look, it's dual column. It doesn't look, it's complex just because of all the different things that you're dealing with, like command and the administrative points, which are kind of a abstract of logistics and the like. So all these different things working together is what makes it complex. But if you look at each one of these sections, they're not overwhelming, but they are not in the case system. They're just paragraphs under bolded sections and this dual column. So it's if you're used to the case system and finding a rule, understanding the rule, or seeing the exception to the rule, this is not set up that way. So this could be a little daunting to get into at that point. Here's facing of the unit. And they do have some examples in here. A lot of that stuff did not have any, a lot of the previous ones did not have example, but now you have some examples of facing and how it's important. And you have to do that on those little tiny hexes, which we will see. And this shows you the mode of facing. So where these ridges are at, or these hashes, or kind of denotes your facing. Here's terrain, zones of control. Let's see, is this, here's combat. Oh, yeah, here's combat here. 18th section is combat. And there are some examples of combat in here. Retreat after combat. Pursuit. Disorganization and rally. So some of your effects of combat. Replacements and reinforcements. Weather. Effect on special unit types. Effects, as that is effects of special unit types. So you got the French Imperial Guard, artillery, politics and off-map movement. So you get, again, we're getting now pulling out from maybe more into the operational, maybe a little bit into the strategic a little bit here. Fall of Berlin, Bavarian realignment. So these are some of these effects that happen that are not happening in your theater, but will affect your theater of play. Optional rules, and you got some Q&A here. So be interested. I'm always interested to see what people highlighted, to see what they found interesting. I remember back in college days, you get a book and stuff was highlighted, so you're thinking, oh, wow, that must be the important stuff. Not always the case. Don't always follow you got to assume the person that highlighted it knew what they were doing. So there's the rules here. Then we get the scenario folder, so there's different scenarios, and that is equally large. Then we have some stuff here. I don't know what these are different. There's some different cities. I have to look that up. So here's your scenario folder. This is the setup tables. And so you can look at the maps here. The maps, I found this was interesting. This is one of the first times I saw this in a game where they did the overlay of the maps in the setup scenario like this. I mean, I remember, used to seeing geomorphic maps that you see in Panzer Blitz, Panzer Leader, Squad Leader, and stuff like that. But they would just usually have like an A, B, or C. But to have the actual map reprinted inside, I thought was kind of interesting. It's all the different scenarios. So you get your setup. And these are mainly for setup purposes. And then you got some player notes here. Wow, a lot of player notes. And here's your Allied Army Manifest. So a lot of research went into this. French Army Manifest. Here's designer notes. Several designer notes here. Here's some historical background here. The civilization of the Elba in the 18th century. Oh, what's this here? And here's an appendix. Whoa. A little bit different color text there, or color paper background. That's really small too. Look at that. Wow. There's a lot in here. A lot in here. And then I got to figure out what that chart is. Then we have, here's a supply administration flow chart. So I got some blood effects on here. That's, I don't know, hopefully that's not blood. It looks like it might be rust or something. Supply administration flow chart. So you got a little bit of a flow chart here. So there is some complexity here. Here's your administrative status display, force situation, summary worksheets. God, worksheets. Am I doing my taxes again? There's several of those in there. That's most of what that stuff is. Administrative status display. So these are some extra pages in here. I don't know if this came with it or if those are copies. They look like they might have came with it. This one looks like it's cut out. There's that French Army Manifest again. Then here is a overview and sequence of play for a single player turn. Then you have some more manifest of units and stuff here. So yeah, quite a bit there. Some of your charts and stuff. Here are those organizational charts. We'll take a look at those. Here's Struggle of Nation turn record and reinforcement track. So here's like your turn track. It's where you can map out your reinforcements on there. This is on a little bit thicker paper here. I think I remember when my friend got this, and I was just looking at some of this stuff. This looks like it got leaked onto something there. So this was daunting. Here's your attrition quotient matrix. Yeah, that shouldn't scare away anybody. March attrition table, summary of modifiers, facts and figures, struggle of nations charts and tables. So there's got two sets of these, and the person highlighted this. So you get some of your charts and stuff that you probably use the most. And like I said, I think there's two versions here, two copies. Communications table. So this is all about your orders and stuff, or how you move. There we go. Then we get some more the stuff that was unpunched. So there's an unpunched counter sheet, typical Avalon Hill vintage. But you have the Austrians. Let's see what we have here. The Swedish are the purple. Prussian are gray, of course. Austrian are white. Russian green. Allied is red. French is blue. And then I think you put them on there like that would show the movement indication maybe. But this will be their facing. Then we have these are combat counters. So this is where you mark your forces. So I think I did an inventory of this back in the day. My friendly local gaming store was very nice to let me do some inventories of stuff. This is my old friendly local gaming store, long gone. But they didn't look like they punched out much from this. I saw these in here. But there must have been a whole sheet of these little ones that they punched out that must have been connected to this on this row right here, possibly. So these are the show your combat counters that will go on the track. They're single-sided because they're going to go on these organizational charts. So let's take a look at that and see what those look like. I'm probably going to need some space for all that. So let's move out a little bit here and see what we have in store for us there. Whoa. Okay, let's look at the French one first. As you can see here. And this is on, it's a little bit thicker paper than what's in the rule book, but it's not a player aid type paper there. Let's go out a little bit here, see what we have. So this is the track. So for each one of these leaders, you'll put those bigger counters on there to keep track of the unit strengths. Here's Napoleon himself. So you have all these different sections here. And even this looks a little daunting, I think, at times. When I was first, there's that part that came off that was maybe a little bit of moisture or something, but came off on that one counter sheet there. So that's the French organization displays, and the Allies is even larger, as we can see here. So I think you could cut those perf lines. You can cut it to make it, I guess, a more manageable display for your table. Let's look at some of the ones up here. So you can see, and so again, you'll have the same. You have the leader. The images is nice, or the images are nice, but then you have these strength boxes to keep track of your units in there. So a lot of the information is off the side, is off to the side on these boards here. Let's take a look at those map boards now. You just have to see how small these hexes are, and I got to be careful how I unfold these because they will come apart if you unfold them the wrong way. It's a little bit of a puzzle. Oh, there we go. Yeah, a lot of people didn't like these, and they had a hard time folding down over time because of they just didn't necessarily lay flat, and you end up having to put Plexi on them if you were so inclined. Back then, Plexi was not as prevalent as it is nowadays. But, I mean, the maps are nice. I mean, you've got terrain, and you can tell the different types of terrain, from elevated to wooded to the streams and some hills and stuff and some cities or key areas. But those hexes are just so small. Take a look at some of those hexes there. I mean, let's look at that. my finger just, I don't have the biggest fingers, and they just take up the entire area. So let's look at this other map here. This is a smaller map, so it looks like an L when you put this together, I believe. And see, that one flares up even more. As you can see, I got some wings going on here. And if you try to back bend them to try to get them to lay flat, that's when these things break open. Plus, this is a relatively old game. This has been out there for a while. I mean, I've got this many years ago, but, well, I mean, 10, 15 years ago. But it was produced in, I think this maybe came out in 83 maybe, or something like that. It was in the 80s, I believe. So there's Silesia. So there is the there be the two maps. Let's look at some of these counters here. I wonder if that's the original dice that came with it too. You heard that rattling off. So let's see what the counter looks like on here. So like here is counter. As you can see, really small, and that's how you're moving around. Like maybe when you're on the road, I think you might do it like that when you're moving, but then when you're in combat, you have your facing, you know, like that. But I mean, this has to be the smallest counters I've seen, or smallest hexes. Well, it's maybe smallest counters too, but smallest combination of counters and hexes. Definitely the hexes that I've ever seen. So there you have it. That is Struggle of Nations, The Struggle of Nations. This is what you get in a box of Struggle of Nations. Let's pull some of this stuff out so you can take a look at it. Love to know what you've... This has been around for a long time, so I'm sure several of you have played this. Love to know your thoughts on it. What is this over time? What do you think? How this has stood up? Has the system changed? I don't want to put that down. It doesn't lay very flat. Has the system changed and become more refined? And I don't know what the most current iteration of this Campaigns of Napoleon system is, but why don't you let me know? Why don't you school me on what we have here and what is going on here? But anyway, this is what you get in a box of the Struggle of Nations. So if you're buying this used, you get a chance to see what some of the stuff that is included in it. You don't necessarily get 2 rule books. And this one is partially punched, not even a full unpunched version. So that's always good to know and nice to have that so I can punch it on my own. And I probably will finish out punching it and try to play this sometime. But love to know your thoughts on any of that stuff. Anyway, that is it. Man, that's quite a bit of stuff. Can't even get it all in the picture there. But this is the Struggle of Nations from Avalon Hill. So why don't you all let me know what you think about this game and what your experiences have been, and put them in the comments down below. Anyway, that's what I have for you today. Sorry for the long one, but there's a lot to unpack in here. And that's the Struggle of the Nations during my Napoleonic week. Thanks for watching.